If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all three books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and in an effort not to be outdone by Legendary, Subaraya Productions released the trailer for SHIN Ultraman. And I can't say I'm as impressed with this one. For those of you tuning in late, I am not that big a fan of the film Shin Godzilla, which was the last film Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi worked on together. I do not think it is a good film. I know a lot of people say it is a good film, and it's considered blasphemy in the Godzilla fandom to suggest it's anything other than perfect, but I'm sorry, I just cannot bring myself to like it. And I'm actually going to be working on a new set of videos coming out fairly soon, which will dive a little bit deeper into it than I already have. Yes, I do have more to say, but that's beside the point. The point right now is that Shin Ultraman, which is basically being done simply because Shin Godzilla did so well and they want more of that, it looks like more of the same. As far as the human stuff goes, it looks indistinguishable from Shin Godzilla. It's got a lot of people walking really fast, a lot of unusual camera angles like this. It's got people who look like they're from everyday Japan. The only thing to even indicate that these scenes have anything to do with Ultraman is the fact that some characters are wearing Science Patrol lapel pins. That's it. That's the only visual clue as far as the human stuff goes that this has anything to do with Ultraman, which just tells me that this movie's gonna be Shin Godzilla 2.0. At least as far as the human stuff goes. And the human stuff in Shin Godzilla is really what kills it. Well, there's a lot of stuff that kills Shin Godzilla, but the human stuff was just not very good because the humans didn't have anything to them. Now, lest somebody try to twist my words, I'm not expressing my dissatisfaction with this aspect of the trailer simply because it's different from the classic Ultraman. Though to be clear, it is very different from the classic Ultraman. Classic Ultraman, the Science Patrol had these very specific orange uniforms. They went around in these futuristic ships. I think that it was actually meant to be set in the future of that time. But by now it's the past, because there are a couple shots that imply the original Ultraman is set in 1993. Anyway, my dissatisfaction isn't just because it's a different interpretation. My dissatisfaction is the fact that it looks exactly like the last movie these two made, and that last movie did not meet my expectations even a little. So, I can't say I'm too excited for that aspect. But then again, I've said in the past that when the human side of a kaiju movie fails, the monster side should be able to make up for it most of the time. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. My first thought upon seeing the monsters in this trailer is that they look awful. Like, completely awful. They're going with CGI again, not suitmation like they did with Shin, but that doesn't look right to me. It looks plasticky, it doesn't look nearly organic enough. It doesn't sit well with me, and that's just the monster. Actually, I should say monsters, because apparently there's more than one, but both of them look awful. I won't go so far as to say they look like cartoons, but they're on the way. There's just a level of texture and shininess to them that doesn't make them look right. It doesn't make them look real. And as for Ultraman himself, something about this just doesn't sit well with me either. It's like from the neck down, he's a bodybuilder who went out and got his body painted to have the Ultraman colors on it with all the texturing and whatnot, and then he's wearing a plastic helmet. That head doesn't look like it belongs on that body to me. And I think it's because they're going with CGI that this is the case. Look, I have said in the past that I am no special effects snob. I like good practical effects and I like good digital effects. But you may notice I said good. What happens when the effects are bad? What I'm about to say will sound like a paradox at first, so it's a good thing I'll be able to articulate what I mean. A bad practical effect may not look convincing, but it always looks real. By which I mean, a bad practical effect may not be able to convincingly convey the thing it's meant to represent. What's meant to be a big explosion may just look like a tiny little firework going pop. What's meant to look like a terrifying monster may just look like a cheap Halloween costume. But even if that's the case, there's always a tangibility to a practical effect that the human eye can recognize, and they can see that it looks like it belongs there. It still looks real, even if it doesn't look convincing. And as a result, you'll often find that many times, older practical effects that either haven't aged well because the techniques have improved, or they never looked good even back then, they can possibly get to a point where you can look at them and say, yeah, that's charmingly campy. It looks fake, but that's part of the fun of watching a movie like this. On the other hand, a bad digital effect may not look convincing, but it will also never look real. You'll always be able to tell that a bad digital effect does not belong in the shot, especially if it's surrounded by more realistic looking stuff. It's always going to not sit well, whether it's an issue of lighting or texture or ability of the object to interact with things around it. There's always going to be something there that just doesn't make it look right. And as a result, I've never heard anyone refer to a bad digital effect as having become charmingly campy with time. People look at bad digital effects that haven't aged well, or from movies that are just coming out, and they always say, wow, that looks like garbage. And I'm getting that same sense here. And the weird part is that these monsters and Ultraman seem to be far more animated, at least at this point, than Shin Godzilla ever was. And Shin Godzilla looked real for like 99% of the shots, even though he barely moved. He looked like he was actually there most of the time. So, is that really the trade-off we're going for here? We can either have something that looks incredibly realistic but hardly does anything, or we can have something that does a lot of stuff but doesn't look good. If those are the only options when it comes to digital effects, why aren't we doing practical effects still? Because clearly that would get a better result. Now, I can already anticipate some of the counter-arguments that might come from this critique. The first one being, well, it's not like the original Ultraman had the best special effects. And sure, the original Ultraman series didn't have very good kaiju effects when you compare it to, say, the Godzilla movies made in that same era. But then again, right there, that explanation itself is why that is a false equivalency. Because you're talking about a TV series, which TV series have historically always had lower budgets than movies. And given that Ultraman was a low-budget series, it still did the best that it possibly could. Sure, techniques would be refined over time, budgets would increase with each new Ultra series, but even so, for that original series, it didn't look the best, but it still looked good for what they were able to do. And again, this is a movie, the budget should be higher, why does it look like that? The second argument that I anticipate will be, it's just a trailer. The effects may not be finished yet. And maybe that's the case. Maybe we are looking at unfinished effects. Then again, we weren't looking at unfinished effects when the first trailer for Shin Godzilla was released. It's possible, though. Generally, studios try not to release trailers with unfinished effects these days. If they do, they just include a shot that has practical elements but no digital elements, and then eventually they'll release another trailer that has those digital elements completely finished added in, sort of like what you saw in, say, from recent memory, the Venom trailer. There's that shot of people in that first Venom trailer just sort of falling down. And it's because they're supposed to be attacked by the antagonist of the film, whatever that symbiote is called, it really doesn't matter. But you may recall the effects weren't finished for that yet, so rather than put something out that looked bad, they just included the practical element. That's the general studio practice these days. I can't see them doing that for this, but it's possible. So for now I'll reserve full judgment on that, but if we get a second trailer and the effects don't seem to have improved, then we're just looking at the possibility of the effects in this Ultraman movie looking awful. Now I admit, a large part of the reason why I'm not excited for this is because Anno and Higuchi are involved, and I really did not like what they did when handed the reins to the Godzilla franchise. It just did not work. And I cannot see them doing anything differently with Ultraman, if I'm being perfectly honest, especially not based on this trailer, which looks very similar to the trailer for Shin Godzilla in multiple ways. Now, from what I've heard, Anno isn't actually directing this one. He wrote the script, but he's not directing, he will be producing. Now, I don't know if that means he'll be producing the same way Steven Spielberg produced Poltergeist, which is to say, he kept doing interfering, and so he was practically directing anyway, even though he wasn't officially the director. But if it's still his script, I don't trust him to do it after Shin Godzilla. But with Higuchi being the only director, that makes it even worse because Higuchi's great at special effects, but he is no director. The Attack on Titan duology, the live-action movies, not the anime, those are awful whenever the Titans aren't on screen. They just do not function. They are bland, they are not pleasant to look at, the characters are pale imitations of what they are in the original manga. Yeah, that's not gonna work if you ask me. Higuchi does not have the best track record when he is left completely in charge. Great at special effects, not so good at everything else. But I know a lot of other people are looking forward to this. I wish I could understand it. I mean, I'm a fan of Ultraman too. That doesn't mean I look forward to everything that involves him. It is possible for Ultraman to not work. And I wish I could say this looked like it would, but I don't think it's gonna. We'll see what happens if and when another trailer surfaces, but for now, I think this one's gonna be a hard pass for me. But anyway, that's just where I stand on the matter. They can't all be winners. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.